Oh, it could be worse.
A little notebook here which I'm reading from, which is the process that I went through from complete start to finish, contacting the artist to having the tattoo done. And I'm sure if you have any tattoos or if you've looked into the process at all, you'll know exactly the process because it's pretty standard no matter where you go in the world. I think I first got in contact with the artist that I wanted to go with about 3 weeks before, and luckily we were in Bangkok for 2 whole weeks, so I had quite a wide window that I could match our schedule with his. He had a couple of other days available as well, but they were earlier in our trip, and I was quite worried because I haven't had a piece, I haven't had a piece that big, but more importantly I haven't had a piece so close to where clothing might touch it, and I was a little worried that if we were like walking around all the temples and I was getting sweaty, or you know, like if I was wearing, well, okay, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to wear a bra for a while, or that I shouldn't wear a bra for a while, more like. So I wanted to do it nearest the end of our trip so that it would not interfere with anything as much as possible. Like I knew that it was going to be a bit like sore to heal, and I knew that we were going to be spending like something stupid like 24 hours on planes and layovers to get home, and that might be a bit uncomfortable with, you know, like a fresh wound basically like under the boob. Yeah, so I wanted to have it as late in the trip as possible so that it didn't possibly interfere with anything at all, and that ended up being like a really good plan, I want to say, because the day after, I don't know what it is about like sitting for a long session, but just really takes it out of you. Like I felt like I had the flu or something. I felt really lethargic and like ill almost, but only for like 24 hours, and that's pretty standard. I think some people call it a tattoo hangover. And yeah, I think if you're getting something that's more than like an hour or 2 long, you do just really need like another kind of day to recover afterwards, because your body kind of just has a lot of adrenaline and, you know, hormones and endorphins and things like shooting all over the place because you are basically paying someone to torture you. Like it's not that bad, but essentially like that's the situation that your body is in. So if you are getting a tattoo on holiday, I would really recommend getting it done at the very end if you can. If I needed a touch up, it would be after it's fully healed anyway, so unless you're going to be somewhere for like a month, probably you wouldn't have the opportunity for a touch up regardless of when in the trip you get it done. So yeah, if I needed a touch up, I'd probably have to get it done in New Zealand by someone else, which would suck, or I could wait until we go back to Thailand. I only contacted him 3 weeks before my like booking day, and so something happened which I was like so nervous about going through with the plan, knowing that this was what was going to happen, which was that I didn't actually see my design until the day that I got it done. And normally, you know, you want to know exactly what you're getting done, and you can kind of like perfectly envision it on your body. And yeah, I don't know, I thought that maybe I would need to see it earlier than that, but because I inquired quite late and it was a custom piece, it had to be completely custom drawn for me within 3 weeks. I only saw it the day that I got it done, but it was so perfect. Like, oh, honestly, we walked in the door, and I should be able to insert a picture here of the drawing, like the stencil drawing kind of piece that was laid out on the table in front of me when we first got there, and I just wanted to cry. I gave them a couple of reference pictures of like the size that I wanted it compared to my body, and I gave them a reference picture of the shoes, and I gave them 2 or 3 reference pictures of the tiara part of it, kind of like based on a tiara, kind of crown kind of. And I'd drawn it myself, like very terribly. So they definitely had, you know, a lot of reference photos. Sent them like 8 or 9 reference pictures of similar things, and yeah, the shoes and the tiara, and then my drawing, which was needing to be redrawn very badly. And yeah, he basically just said like, cool, I can do that, I know, you know, I know what you mean, I understand what you're looking for. And I didn't even see any sketches or anything, because I guess yeah, I guess it was too late, like last minute, to do any revisions or anything, but I honestly, I would not have changed anything about it. It was so perfect. Let's see what I got written here. So, okay, the first step, I asked the internet, which was my tattoo blog on Tumblr. I asked them, I put the question out into the world, which was, who is the best in Bangkok? Basically, not who's the cheapest. I'm willing to pay a normal amount, like in New Zealand dollars, which would be like a high-end amount in Thailand, for basically the best person in the style that I like, which is kind of dot work, but basically just like very crisp black lines, like I don't know, like you see what it looks like. That's basically just the style that I like. And if you go on his Instagram, which I will link down below, you can see that his work is pretty consistent, besides when I guess he probably has some like funny client requests, but most of his work is all black ink work. 2 or 3 different people messaged me and said that this studio in particular, there's 2 people who actually work at the studio that are like equally as good as each other. One of them wasn't free at all in the couple of weeks that we were in Bangkok, and then the guy who did my tattoo, who's, I'm so sorry if you like ever watch this video by some miracle, I cannot pronounce your name, but I'm gonna link it down below so you'll be able to find it. I had a look on the map as to where they were, and they weren't like a crazy amount out of the city or anything. Well, I mean, obviously I would have travelled pretty much anywhere within like an hour or 2 of Bangkok, but they were say like a 35-minute taxi from where we were. Their Instagram account is full of pictures of work that was done that day, so it's hard to tell if there's any pictures that are older, but you can kind of get an idea of like obviously their skill level based on how clear and perfect the lines are and that kind of thing anyway. But I was pretty confident that these guys were good, and when I messaged them, you know, English is not their first language, but they are really professional people and they reply to emails quickly. And although it wasn't an email, it was a Facebook message, I think. No, our whole tattoo planning and conversation was done through their Facebook page, which you know, like that's just how modern businesses talk to their customers, so that's cool. There's no issue with them, you know. I don't know if they have their own website, maybe they don't, maybe they just have a really nice looking Instagram and no website. I don't know, I just talked to them on their Facebook page and it worked out well, so that's no indication of anything. So once I had like explained to them what I want and given them reference photos, and they said, you know, the approximate cost, which like I know they don't want to be rude and they don't want to say like depends on how big you are or depends on how big it is, like the tattoo, but it does depend on how long it takes. And obviously if you're a little person, it won't take as long as if you were like, you know, like a big muscly man getting the same tattoo, you know what I mean? So they can't really give you an exact figure until they see you, and mine ended up being I want to say pretty much in the middle of what they quoted. And then I didn't really know anything about the tipping etiquette for this kind of service in Bangkok, because I know that tipping is I know that tipping is very much appreciated, but it's not as like necessarily like super expected as it is in America. And at home in New Zealand we don't tip at all because people's wages are supposedly like higher and it's all included, and you know the cost of food is definitely higher in New Zealand because like the wages of the food workers and that kind of thing are all like taken into consideration. And I think I've never tipped for a tattoo in New Zealand, but I know that people kind of tend to price themselves very well and very correctly here so that they are getting paid properly, so they don't expect or rely on tips at all here like they do overseas. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is I had no idea about the tipping etiquette in Bangkok for tattoos, and obviously I didn't want to like not tip if they were expecting it. So I did tip, and I tipped 1,000 baht, which is 40 New Zealand dollars. Yeah? Yeah, 40 New Zealand dollars was my tip. And yeah, honestly I wasn't really sure if I should tip in the first place, so I figured that, you know, I would kind of like middle ground like the amount of a tip, because I honestly I didn't know if it was expected or anything, but it was definitely appreciated. Like he said thank you and he smiled, and it, you know, I don't know, it's so hard because I know like in Japan there's a few countries that it's actually rude to tip for whatever reason, and I think Japan is one of them. Honestly, like that was the most confusing part of the whole process, and if that's the most confusing part, that means that it went really well on the whole, I would say. If whether or not you should tip is the most confusing or stressful part of your like 4.5 hour tattoo session, then I think it went well. I paid 1,000 baht deposit anyway, which was 40 New Zealand dollars, and I paid that by PayPal, which was probably 2 weeks before my session. And that's obviously just to secure my date, because if I don't turn up, obviously like they've custom drawn this for me, and like probably no one else is gonna necessarily use it because it was like obviously like a custom personal design for me, and that would be a really big waste of money and time for them because they wouldn't have booked another person on the same day. And you know, this is why we take deposits, but I thought that the deposit would be higher than that. I would be annoyed if I only took 1,000 baht deposit and someone didn't turn up after I'd custom drawn them something. But you know, I think that they probably attract the kind of people who are willing to pay more for a tattoo, and possibly the same kind of people who don't bail on appointments. Maybe that's generally the, you know, they kind of go hand in hand, I would say, in my industry anyway. Okay, so day 12, which was the 5th of January 2017, I'm so dumb, why did we do this? So what we did was we went to Bobe Market the morning of the tattoo, and then we came home and had a little rest for like 2 or 3 hours. No, longer than that, like 5 hours. Yeah, we got home at like 6 AM and we left to go to the studio at like 11:30, 12. We had like a decent 5 hour rest / nap. We were at Lone Wolf Studio from 1 until about 6:30, which was like probably 2 to 6 the actual tattoo time, and the 1 hour at the beginning was putting the stencil on, talking to me about the size, which was already perfect, the size that they had printed it and drawn it at, and then the last half hour was like taking a photo of it and talking about aftercare and wrapping me up and that kind of thing. So yeah, like probably 5.5 hours at the studio, 4 of which was like solidly being tattooed with a 10-minute break in the middle so I could pee because I was lying down for a while, and I did feel a little bit nauseous when I got up to pee in the middle, probably because you know, your body's under a lot of stress, like physically. You're like essentially like the top layer of your skin is being removed / cut into, and it does a lot of crazy things to your endorphins and hormones, and if you're sitting or lying in the same spot you don't really notice until you get up. So I was lying like perfectly still for like a solid 2.5 hours, and then when I stood up I was like, oh, I feel like I'm gonna be sick. Which is perfectly normal, and I was not sick, I just felt sick. But I mean, obviously I didn't feel like bad enough to stop or anything like that. There's no way I was stopping at that point. It was like half done to the center, because he went from one rib, like one side of the rib cage to the other over the top. So there was no way, and no way ever I would walk out like halfway through and have like half a tattoo finished. That would look really ridiculous. And yeah, it wasn't that bad. I just felt a little bit nauseous. Stupidly enough, we decided to go to Rodfire Vintage Market straight after getting my tattoo, which wouldn't have been that stupid normally. Like, that's a normal amount of stuff to pack into a day for like a really full-on holiday. I would say like early morning market, something during the day, and then night market. Like, that's not too crazy. I was actually a bit sick when we went to the market, so it was okay. I still really enjoyed it. It was actually one of my favorite places in the whole trip, and I wish if I can go back in time we would have gone back again the next night. I thought that Rodfire would be expensive, and it was so cheap, and it was so cute, and I don't know, it was just really nice. And I feel bad that I didn't appreciate it. I feel bad that I was sick and embarrassing, and I probably made us leave a bit earlier than we would have otherwise. We did stay for quite a while though, maybe like 3 hours. Yeah, we spent a decent amount of time there. I don't think I cut the trip like too short. So we slept in, and then we went shopping. That's basically it. We didn't really do too much the next day because, yeah, we were all pretty tired. It wasn't just me at that point. This is day 12 of our holiday, and of those 12 days, only one day had like a proper like rest day. It was like 11 very, very full-on days, like at least 3 or 4 things happening every day, which is good because, you know, you have to make the most of the short time that you are in a country, and we definitely made the most of it. Like, I couldn't fit anything more in if we tried. What does that say? I wrote this like half an hour ago. I can't even read my own writing. It's pretty embarrassing. What I wrote was that I didn't realize that I have a freckle on my kind of stomach, I guess, like upper stomach, and it ended up being like in the part where the tattoo was, and I just didn't even think about it. Like, I just didn't even cross my mind that maybe a freckle would be like in the way or would need to be worked around somehow. So I'll show you what I mean. But it ended up being like in the tattoo but with no ink on it, so it worked out quite well. But it does kind of look random, like it's not meant to be there. I don't think I'd ever get it like removed or anything because, you know, it's just a freckle. But yeah, it's the only thing that's not symmetrical. It's just annoying because it's like, apart from the shoes, which are just like one thing in the middle, the sides of the tattoo are meant to be completely symmetrical. So time for like a little video tour. That is actually a pair of ballet shoes, and what is either side more or less kind of loosely based on a tiara, and then in the middle that is like, that part there at least is like the top of a tiara from a reference picture that I found and I really loved. And then it just goes around the side, but not like super all the way around, like yeah, like not even to like the side or anything, just a little bit around. And yeah, that is the freckle that I completely forgot existed. So that has not been like incorporated into the tattoo at all. Obviously it kind of just is there as a tribute piece to the world of ballet and the 17 years so far that I have done ballet, which has made up like most of my life obviously. And it's kind of like for my grandmother as well, because like she's alive, it's not like a memorial piece for her or anything, but she has always taken me to ballet since I was 4. and she also has made a lot, if not most, of the costumes for our show every year. And yeah, she's just a really big part of my life and my ballet life, and yeah, it's for her. But she doesn't like tattoos, but she thinks that this one is nice, so you know. So now the pain level discussion. Everyone asked me like, how much did it hurt? I say, which part basically, because the majority of it was less painful than I was anticipating. I thought, you know, rib cage, rib tattoos, like this is gonna be horrible, and for the most part it was fine. And actually apparently I looked like I was gonna fall asleep at some point. I was just being very, like, I hesitate to use the word zen, but like, you know, I was trying to like relax and try to be really chilled out and try to just kind of, you know, like zone out and get through it without like thinking about it too much. So apparently that looks like I'm about to fall asleep, but I assure you I was very much awake and it was pretty painful. But yeah, majority of it was less painful than I was anticipating. From here through like here, line wise, like just the outside lines, that was all good. Same as the other side, like from here through to here, and actually this middle section here, that was really good up till about the heart. That main section, thank goodness the main section was the one that was fine. That was really good. The chains were okay. That part where it's getting down to like the squishy part of your stomach, that was pretty bad. Just that little bit there, those dots were quite like an annoying pain. And then this part through here, from about the heart up, but especially that little like kind of flower dot part in the middle. Oh my god, I don't know, I really didn't think there'd be that much difference within one piece, you know, like it's like, oh, you know, it's like a under boob tattoo, like it'll probably hurt, like, well, it'll definitely hurt in some amount, but I didn't think it would vary as much as it did. So it was like fine, like, oh, that's pretty painful. And then here I was like really trying not to cry, honestly. It was, I don't know, it just sounds so stupid talking about it because it looks like it's all the same area, and it's hard to imagine that it would feel so different because it's in the same, basically the same place. But yeah, really it hurt a lot more than the rest of it. So I mean, I wouldn't advise against getting that area tattooed because I really love how that looks, and it's not high enough that it's like super obvious in most of what I wear, but if I want it to be visible, it can be. Pretty much all of this part here felt like someone was scratching sunburn, but then this bit felt like someone was like actively cutting me open with a scalpel. So it varies depending on where you are getting tattooed. I'd say the experience with this studio in particular was super positive and like just really good, and I'd highly recommend them to anyone. They're really professional and they answered any questions that I had. They had to give me kind of a vague price up until I got it done because obviously they didn't know how long it was going to take exactly, and most tattoo artists roughly work on an hourly basis. And also the fact that it was custom drawn for me would have been slightly more expensive than if I had a picture off the internet, or if I'd had it drawn by someone else, or any other situation other than them doing a custom piece. It would have been cheaper, but I really think that it was like the price that it should have been. Like, it wasn't super expensive in my experience with New Zealand tattoo prices. It was on par with New Zealand. Like, if I was to redo it, I would do exactly the same thing again. I'm so happy with the design. I'm so happy with how they took my really horrible sketch and my reference photos and made it exactly what I was envisioning if I had a clear vision in the first place. And even though I didn't get to see it before I had it done, besides on the day itself. I didn't get to see it weeks in advance because I didn't book it far enough in advance. That's completely my fault. I loved it as soon as I saw it, and I knew that that was perfect, and I knew that everything was going to be okay, and any worries that I had, it just disappeared as soon as I saw the design. And yeah, I knew it was going to be good. And it did take a while, and I did have my best friend and my husband with me for the whole 4 hours, except my best friend actually did go and get a 2-hour massage while I was being tattooed because she got bored and I was just trying to like zone out, and I wasn't really in the mood to talk to anyone, so I was being really boring. And she said, you know, do you mind if I go find something else to do for a while, because we're going to be here for like at least 3-4 hours, he said. I was like, yes, like please go find something else to do, don't bore yourself at my expense. And she was on holiday too, of course, so you know, it would be such a waste of time for her to be somewhere interesting and new, like a new suburb that we hadn't been to before, and it would be such a waste of time if she just sat, you know, inside for 4 hours when she could have been exploring. So she went and had a little wander around and got a massage, and then she came back and it was almost finished. By the time she left me, it was like an hour and a half in. It was quite an experience in itself being tattooed on holiday and overseas, because not only is the piece like obviously its own thing and its own meaning, which is a tribute to ballet that I spent most of my life doing, but now it's also like a souvenir. So most of the stuff that you buy when you're on holiday is not going to last that long. Like the clothes are like average kind of quality, and any like makeup or food or little bits and pieces are not going to last more than like a year or two. But a tattoo is the one souvenir that's like always gonna be there, and it's always gonna remind you of what an amazing trip you had. I believe that you get what you pay for, and definitely in tattooing that is not something that you want to skimp out on and regret. Like, you know, you get what you pay for. If you buy cheap shoes, they're probably gonna fall apart, but they're not permanent and it doesn't really matter, you know. But if you buy a cheap tattoo and it's horrible, like, I don't know, if it's somewhere visible that could like ruin your life, and it's just not worth the risk, honestly. So buy cheap shoes, but do not buy a cheap tattoo. Don't buy cheap shoes either. It's been a year, almost exactly. It's been 13 months actually, and I thought I'd make a video, but I'd record a little extra bit on the end about how it looks a year healed, to see if there was any blowouts or any kind of change that was negative or positive, and maybe just a review of if I would have changed anything or anything like that. So where I'm sitting to film this is actually in our new bedroom. We've moved house since the last time I filmed and there is I actually don't remember how many I ended up getting printed. I want to say like 60. Anyway, they are from Bangkok Press, which is an awesome company, and they do these square prints which are perfect for Instagram photos. Not sponsored by them or anything, they're just awesome. And we got almost our entire Instagram feed in chronological order of the trip, which sits above our bed now, which is awesome to look at every day. And I want to go back to Thailand any day of the year. We have something kind of planned, but not very seriously. I really want to go to India, and I don't know when that's going to happen, but you know, it might happen, it might not. We have a lot of other things going on at the moment. Anyway, totally off topic. So it's been over a year. I would not change anything about the placement. I would not change anything about the design. I'm still absolutely in love with it and so stoked about the way that it turned out, exactly as I was hoping and exactly as I would have imagined it if I was any good at drawing, basically. Yeah, when it was originally designed for me, I gave them a very rough sketch, and it turned out better than I could have ever drawn myself, obviously. So yeah, very happy with the design, very happy with the placement. I'll show you what I mean, but I originally thought that it had been put like a fraction too low, but now I understand why it was done that way, so that when I wear a bra it's still entirely visible. And I think that's a bit of future proofing as well, because when I get old I am, you know, not as perky as I am now, I suppose. It will still be visible even if my like chest drops a little bit, so you know, always got these things to worry about later in life that you don't worry about right now. Yeah, so I honestly wouldn't change anything at all. I still think that I got it done at like the best place possible at a good price, and the communication was really awesome, the artist was awesome, the time in our timeline of our trip was perfect. I wouldn't have changed that. Yeah, honestly, nothing at all. That's pretty much all I have to say about that one. So this is what it looks like 1 year later, and I would say it looks exactly the same as it did 6 months in, and like, I don't know, basically exactly the same as it did the day it was done. In my unprofessional opinion, I don't think it's changed at all. I don't think it's bled out, I don't think it's gone funny underneath the skin or anything. Pretty much exactly the same as it was last time I took a little video of it. Yep. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't really know what else to say about it, other than I would highly recommend the guys at Lone Wolf Studio where I got it done, and I would say that if you are thinking about getting a tattoo while you're on holiday, it's not necessarily a terrible idea, even though, yeah, most of my family was like, you're gonna die if you get a tattoo in Thailand. It's not that dire, it's not that drastic. I think as long as you are really sensible, as long as you do your homework and don't try and cheap out on it, then it will be as enjoyable and as positive an experience as it would be in your home country. Maybe better, I don't know, depends where you live. Yeah, I don't know, I don't really have anything else to say.